Basically, every weapon class is better than the SMGs, making them so difficult to use. So today we're going to be going over the top 5 best SMGs with the best classes so you can actually compete against the metas. For the first SMG, this could be the RYDEN 45K. It doesn't do that much damage and doesn't really just overall have that much range, but there is a lot of movement speed allowing you to really take advantage of the movement, and it definitely does have somewhat of a fast TTK when you use it in those intended ranges. Overall, there's not that much recoil on the gun either. If you're in the gunfight, you're strafing to counteract that recoil. Using your actual thumb should be able to pop off to where you don't really need that much recoil control attachments. But I did find that the gun is astronomically easy to use when you have the Hawker Series 45, increasing that recoil gun kick control by 20%. We are using the iron sights, so we need to make sure they don't shake. This is going to remove all of that shake and then also just reduce the amount of verticals on the weapon. For the barrel, since there really isn't that much damage range, we're going to be adding the Vina barrel. I think that's how you say it, increasing that damage range by about 30%. Now, one way to know if you should be using the damage range and the bow velocity barrel or just the damage range barrel is by looking at the bow velocity. You typically want at least 500 meters per second. With the damage range barrel, we have 530, so that's going to be more than enough, allowing you to take advantage of the extra damage range. Now, the fire rate is super fast where you're always going to be running out of ammo, although if you do want to take this off for something else, or if you want an extra attachment, I would definitely take off the magazine. For me, I prefer the magazine to where I would rather have iron sights and a magazine rather than less ammo and a nice sight on the gun. For the rear grip, because the slide to fire speed, well, I guess the mobility is already pretty good on the weapon, but because this thing doesn't have that much damage range, we need to make sure it's super good up close and just make it easier to get closer to the enemies. With the eruption grip, this is going to allow you to do so, cutting down on that slide to fire and that dive to fire speed. And then if you just makes the weapon a whole lot snappier. You can get away without the rear grip, but just if the gun's up good up close, you want to make it extra good up close, which is exactly why we are going to be adding the collapsible stock, increasing that movement speed. I believe that increases the sprinting movement speed as well, but not necessarily your tactical sprint speed if you are using that perk. It also is going to make it so you can walk 16% faster. I know nobody walks, but so when you walk, it basically allows you to shoulder the corner a little bit faster, a little bit harder to have the target actually hit you. And you guys can see with all the attachments, it's going to be somewhat easy to use. Long range, it's like 50 meters, you're probably going to struggle a little bit, but you guys should love this class. Here's the 5 attachment build. Now, if you do rock the 8 attachments with the gunfighter wildcard, that's when you can make it extra good. So we're going to go over here, add the recoil control foregrip, which is that lateral. Go ahead and add an optic. I like that ELO sight. Then we're going to be going over to the fire mods, and I like to use the recoil springs just to make it that much better. And then you can actually get away with using a suppressor on the gun. You don't really care about the being off the radar and you just want more recoil control, feel free to take off the suppressor for that compensator again, and you're going to be able to beam that back target. But you guys can see up to like 25 meters, you're overall pretty good while still keeping a lot of mobility on your gun. So here's the screenshot for the 8 attachment RYDEN 45. By the way, if you want every camo in Black Ops 7, make sure you check out my long-term sponsor Guapsi. This is a group of people who will legitimately grind your account to unlock anything you want. This goes for all the master camos, iridescent, like actually anything, and they don't break TOS or play with cheaters, so there's absolutely no risk of being banned. I've worked with them for the past 3 years and haven't seen a single negative review. And so if you want all the mastery camos or iridescent rank risk-free, make sure you check out guapsi.com. I'll have their link down in the description. For the next SMG, we got the MPC-25. This is actually the MSMC from Black Ops 2. Phenomenal SMG in this game. I absolutely love it. I have a very, very good build. I've been seeing a lot of people use like very weird builds for the gun. Kind of reminds me of the MP7 a little bit more, especially when you see it in that kill feed. But one thing you guys can tell right there is that the iron sights are already super good. We don't gotta waste the attachment on there. But I always build up my streak with this gun, so I kind of prefer to use a suppressor in there to keep myself off the radar, allowing me to build up that streak and just overall enjoy the game a little bit more. And then the damage range on most of the SMGs aren't that good, and that's one thing that makes them feel weak in this game, is that the lack of damage range. A lot of the ARs have the same amount of mobility with so much more range, so they can be they're good up close, good at long range. These SMGs are only good up close, so we want to extend that damage range by adding the WAS Ash barrel. For the underbarrel, I definitely recommend to use the VOS drift locking foregrip. This is going to increase that recoil control by about 20%, and then also helps with that gun kick shake a little bit, which that recoil gun kick literally correlates to the kick that you see with the iron sights. Verticals obviously up and down, horizontals left to right. And so now you guys can see that even with the suppressor, we're going to be able to beam these back targets kind of. But once I noticed that after using the weapon, I was like, you know what, I think we got to go over to the fire mods, add the recoil springs onto there. This can increase the recoil control just by about 5% overall, but it's so noticeable. Definitely makes the gun a lot easier to use. And again, if you suck at the game, maybe you just hit the bong or something, use the compensator, it's going to be a lot easier. Just, you know, you're on the radar, so that part is a little bit annoying. And then if we actually look at the ADS speed, it's 190 milliseconds, and that slide of fire is 290 milliseconds. The best SMG in the game is going to be the DAVEC, which when you add all the attachments, this thing still has a faster slide of fire speed than if it doesn't have any, than if this gun had no attachments. So we don't necessarily need a rear grip on the gun, and I thought it was actually a lot more enjoyable to increase the mag size or add the pedal stock. Actually, you know what, I mean, the Viper wire stock, they're both super good. Since the attachments in this game don't have any drawbacks, you're perfectly fine with like adding whichever one. I just like this gun feels a little bit heavy, so it just makes it so you can shoulder things a little bit faster, while also still getting some straight speed in there. You guys can see that still a little bit of recoil, but overall, you know, you can hit those shots as long as you hit the first shot on the target. So here's my favorite 5 attachment MPC 25 build in the game. Now, if you do want to use the 8 attachments, this is when you can make it obviously extra overpowered. Use the 40 round mag. For the rear grip, we're going to be throwing on the mobile stock, the photonic adaptive grip. This is going to increase all of the you know, the mobility aspects, so then when you slide into the gunfight, you're for sure going to be able to win it, because there's no other SMG really besides that RYDEN that has a mobility like this one for like slide to fire speed times. And then I honestly really like the iron sights, so I'm going to go to the laser, and I really recommend you guys to add the precision shift laser, increasing your hip fire to ADS accuracy. If you look at this, we actually have 100% ADS accuracy before even fully ADSing, but you don't really need it because the ADS speed's so unbelievably fast on this weapon. You see what I mean? Like, yeah, you move around a little slow, but then it's so snappy. With all that said, here's the 8 attachment MPC 25. Next up, we got the Razor 9mm. This gun, very good, but a lot of recoil, and the iron sights, I don't really like them at all. It's where we kind of have to use a sight, although you can get used to it. And so if you do like the iron sights, that's going to be good for you, because that means you have an extra free attachment on there. But for me, I'm going to be going over here to the optic, and I'm going to be adding the ELO sight, and it's just a lot easier to rip the enemies off headies, or if I see a couple enemies in front of my screen, it's easier to get that spray transfer a little bit more consistently. You guys could also see there's bouncy recoil, but also very manageable, to where you can get away with the suppressor. But I think a lot of you guys, including myself, are going to prefer the precision comp, increasing that recoil gun kick and the vertical recoil control by 20%. Now the gun's really not going to move whatsoever. Well, it's actually still going to bounce side to side. So that's why we're adding the lateral precision grip. This gun, it just has so much like weird bouncy recoil, and the iron sight sucks. So that's why, like, I throw on this and I can use it at long range and still be able to hit those targets. And we're not going to be adding a barrel, so we kind of need to make sure we hit all of our shots. And with this build, you're going to be able to do so, but you're going to be blowing through ammo a lot. And so I'm going to be going over the magazine, adding the 40 round magazine. If we go over to the rig up, you guys can see that slide of fire speed is 360 meters per second. The other gun had 290 with no attachments, so we have to, in this case, add the micro dot, which is going to increase that slide of fire speed by a lot. So now it's 288. You want to make sure it's 290 and below if you want to be on par with all the other guns. All right, here's the 5 attachment Razor 9mm. For the gunfighter build, we're going to be going over to the barrel. We're going to be adding the damage range barrel, increasing that damage range by about 30%. And so now we're going to be doing 21 damage, 4-shot kill, up to 15 meters. Obviously, you can extend that if you get some headshots in there. Then we're going to be adding the Talos pad, or you can do the Serpent one. These ones aren't bad. Like, they add recoil control and things like that, and sometimes I want to use them, but overall I just prefer to have a little bit more straight speed, since once you're used to the gun, you're typically going to be hitting every shot either way. And for the last one, I do like to add the overpressured rounds, since I feel like we already have enough recoil control to where I'd rather just increase my hit scan potential. So now the damage range is, I mean, the bullet velocity is like 550 meters per second, so we can have hit scan up to 25 meters. So the second I pull the trigger, the bullet's going to hit the target. There's no bullet travel until after about 25 meters. And so you're going to feel pretty good difference with that. Although if you do use a suppressor, I would take off the overpressured and use the recoil springs on there. Right here, though, is the 8 attachment Razor 9mm build. Next up, we got the Carbon 57, which is supposed to be the PDW from Black Ops 2. Doesn't really necessarily look like it, but you see where the mag placement is. It's supposed to be like more of like a futuristic one. Some people say the Cordites. Yeah, I kind of see that as well. But overall, pretty good SMG. Not like insanely standoutish, but definitely worth using. And with this build, you're going to be feeling a lot better. I'm going to be adding a suppressor. There's not that much recoil. The iron sights are good, and I kind of tend to build up pretty good streaks with it. So we're going to be adding the suppressor on there, and then to make the weapon a little bit more versatile, even though the damage range is already pretty good, I'm going to be adding the Rockly barrel, however you say that. The bullet velocity is at 550, so we can really just maximize damage range. So now you're going to be off the radar. Weapon's going to be good at like medium range, and it's still pretty good at close range, although the slide of fire speed is in that 360 milliseconds territory, to where in a way you have to add the bombus quick grip to be able to bring that back down, make the weapon a little bit snappier. So now you should be winning so many more gunfights up close. The mag size is 50. Like, you really don't need to add a magazine onto the gun, but the gun is still somewhat kind of bouncy. That's probably because I have a suppressor, but you guys can see that the recoil gun kick control that we're getting is 10% across the board. And since the weapon it's like a medium range SMG, might as well kind of take advantage of that. And so we're gonna have the recoil springs, and we're gonna tie that one in with the hammer platoon pad. So then at those long distances, you're gonna be able to strafe, making yourself a very hard target to hit, and really not that much recoil. There's a tiny bit of like vertical, but that's just because we have a suppressor. It's kind of like the downside of having a suppressor, but then again, now you're off the radar, so it's a very versatile, easy gun to use. So here's the 5 attachment carbon 57 build. You want to use the 8 attachments, you can make this thing extra good. We're going to be going over to the laser again, adding the precision. The other lasers are cool, but you can like visibly see those lasers a lot. And this one, you can't really see it because it's like a blue laser, I believe. I've been looking for it, and I just can't ever see it. So I don't know if it's a glitch or if it's like last year where you just in general don't see it. Since the gun is a little bit slow, I really actually like to add the sapper guard hand stop. You could even like on the 5 attachment take off the stock over here, add the sapper. If you do feel slow moving around with the gun, you're going to get a lot less dead slides, and you still get that recoil control. And so over here now you guys can see that gun shakes less, and it doesn't feel as heavy, so you can kind of tend to slide around a little bit better. And this is one of the best SMGs to actually use 8 attachments on, in my opinion. And then for the magazine, we are going to be adding the 40 round fast mag just to make the weapon a little faster. I feel like you don't need 50 rounds. 40 rounds is good enough, but you could also try some other ones. This one's a very crazy one that I believe it shoots rockets, or maybe that's a different gun, but I haven't really used that one. Overall though, like, you can not use a magazine, just add an optic, and then you have a very clean gun. Like, the iron sights are good, but they're not like crazy. So but for me, I prefer the fast mag. And here's the screenshot for the carbon 57. Lastly, we have one of the best SMGs to be using right now, the DAVEC 45, which is actually the one that we're allowed to be using in rank play. This is what all the pros are using, but just because the pros are using something doesn't mean that's the best SMG in the game, because they usually ban the best stuff from their competitive matches to make the game a little bit more competitive. Although a lot of the SMGs in this game are extremely weak, in this one you can see with no attachments, it is absolutely incredible, so stupidly broken that it has better recoil control and range than some of the other guns in this game. Anyways, though, we're still going to be adding the Horizon barrel, maximizing that damage output. It's going to be a 4-shot kill up to 17 meters, and you will always be getting that 4-shot kill because it's 26 damage to like even the shin, and then also there's no recoil on the gun, making it impossible to miss. And that's why we can add the suppressor, keeping us off the radar. So much easier to get those nukes when you do have that muzzle on there. And then we're going to be going over to the rear grip, and you guys can see that that slide of fire speed is 370. We add the Herald Z1, and it goes all the way over to 296. A little bit slower than you saw the other SMGs. A lot of the other ones I showed you can actually outgun this one up close, but at long range, this one's definitely going to be always winning that. A little bit of bounce, but there's not enough bounce to where you would want to waste a attachment on that recoil control. And there's not really, yeah, I guess the only thing is recoil springs. There's not really much that you can throw on there. But what I've been seeing a lot of professionals use is the Servo Q step stock, or you can do the Heritage, but a lot of them like to strafe in that gunfight, making themselves a very difficult target to hit, and it's easier to get that rotational aim assist. And then for the last attachment, a little bit up to you guys. You guys can add an optic if you want. You could do a magazine. For me, because I always build up streaks, I'm gonna throw on a 48 round Gator magazine. Sometimes I might even throw on a bullet velocity one, but the bullet velocity is 600, a lot better than a lot of the other SMGs in the game. So right here is overall the best 5 attachment DAVEC 45. With the 8 attachments, obviously I'd use an optic at that point, use the ELO. Then we're gonna go over to the fire mods, and you can use the rapid fire. It just kind of kills the damage on it. The bullet velocity is a lot worse now, but then again, there's no recoil at all, and you just gotta watch out for a little bit of lack of bullet velocity. But I'm excited to do a lot more rapid fire builds in the future. It's just I know a lot of people don't really care for, or like the SMGs don't have that much range, so then it just murders it. But this gun already has so much damage range, you're perfectly fine. And we'll add the precision on there, make it so ADS is a little bit faster, it feels like. And right here is the best 8 attachment DAVEC build, one that's a little bit more consistent, a little bit more range, over pressured rounds on there. But I feel like rapid fire is going to be a little bit better if you were to do that. And with all that said, that's gonna wrap it up. If you do find that helpful, make sure you subscribe, drop a like, and deuces.